Tales of Hearts R is a JRPG from the well-known Tales of series, and a remake of the DS version, and exclusive to the PS Vita, although it had a since delisted iOS version only available in Japan. Tales of Hearts R follows the character Core as he tries to regain Kohaku's Spiria shards after shattering it to regain her emotions. But after doing so, a new major threat appears. The story is overall decent, and funny at times. Starts off a bit slow, but that's kinda standard for a JRPG. As the story progresses and more lore gets explained and the plot deepens, it gets a lot more interesting. Most of the cutscenes are in-game, but there are some that are 2D animated. The in-game cutscenes look good but have more simpler animation. All of the 2D cutscenes are well animated and quite grand.
見つけた。見つけたぞ。さあ、魔導士が知らねえがやってやるぜ。
お兄ちゃん。
琥珀、お前、俺が泳げねえの知ってるよな。
大丈夫。私も高いとこ苦手だから。おいこれよ。おっ。
Although some of the cutscenes are still 4:3 aspect ratio from the DS version, just higher resolution, but oddly some of the cutscenes that were reanimated to include new characters aren't 16:9. The overall progression of the game is linear, no branching paths, but there are some dialogue choices that change what characters will say but have no effect on the overall story. The main gameplay consists of traveling to an area, doing some story, going through a dungeon, and repeating. New mechanics and puzzles are introduced well throughout the game, and each dungeon has a unique look to them, other than the Spiria nexuses, which helps to stop it from feeling repetitive. The story is also interesting enough to make you want to find out what happens next. Combat starts off fairly basic, with your only abilities being a basic attack, 1 art, blocking and the spirit gauge at a max level of 1. As the game progresses, the combat gets more complex, introducing more characters you can play as or have in your party, with a good variety of different gameplay styles, more arts to use, and the more interesting chase, link and counterattack. Timing the counterattack is quite rewarding, even though I'm kinda bad at timing it. It is done well, with the enemy making a sound and turning red to indicate when they are about to do an attack that can be countered. Even if you are unable to see the enemy, you can still hear when they are anticipating an attack you can counter. Battles have a decent difficulty curve, but after a certain point the difficulty just spikes up randomly. Boss battles towards the end get quite challenging and require a fair bit of strategy or grinding to get to higher levels to be able to beat them. Through my playthrough I beat most of the enemies I encountered, but did use some holy bottles, which reduced enemy encounter rate, and a few sacrosanct bottles, which makes no enemies appear, and was still struggling a bit with the later bosses on normal difficulty. The game doesn't show what level enemies are, so it can be hard to know what level my party should be at. The overworld is nicely laid out. It isn't too big that it takes ages to get from one place to another, but it isn't too small. The world is diverse and varied enough, making areas memorable to help when needing to navigate back to a previous place for the story. One minor downside with traveling around is there is no fast travel, so even if you've been to a place before, you can't quickly travel back to it like in newer Tales of games. But this isn't a huge issue, as you don't need to backtrack often, and most of the time the area you need to go to next isn't too far from where you currently are. There is a way to be able to travel around faster and without any enemy encounters, but it's unlocked right near the end of the game, so don't get to use it much, unless you use it at that time to do the side content. Overall the graphics are quite good, the environment and character models all look good, don't look blocky, and have a decent poly count. The textures have no noticeable pixelation or blurriness, with vibrant and appealing colors, which makes all the environments look quite good. There is a decent amount of objects scattered around in the environments, but they are sometimes a bit bare. Although the game runs at 30 FPS, it still looks quite smooth and maintains that frame rate throughout the game, no stutters or frame rate drops, even in more demanding scenes. There is a bonus side combat challenge, the Arena. Each rank in the arena gets harder and requires a higher level party, and as usual with Tales of games, there is a cameo battle, as the last battle in the arena, with characters from Tales of Graces in this game. There are also collectibles, optional things to do or places to go to unlock outfits for the characters in your party, and side quests that you can do. There is a decent variety of music, all of it is good, and fits the mood well. You've been listening to some of it playing in the background of this video. The only downside with the music is most of the towns use a few specific town themes. It gets a bit repetitive, but you don't stay in those towns too much. Most of the playtime is spent inside of dungeons which have unique music. There are a few different battle themes. With cameo DLC outfits, it changes the battle music to the battle music of the game the outfit is from. So if you get tired of hearing the regular battle music, you could always just get the DLC to change the music, but it is paid DLC. Overall, the music is great to listen to. Tales of Hearts is a really good Tales of game with a nice story, good combat, even though it starts off a bit slow, great graphics and performance, and good music, although it has some repetitive music, but it isn't too frequent. The game is also a decent length, taking around 45.5 hours to beat. Overall, I recommend checking out Tales of Hearts, or if you're a fan of the Tales of games, or you're just a fan of JRPGs and haven't played it before. Overall, I give Tales of Hearts a like rating, not quite up there to get a loved rating, but still quite good. Tales of Hearts Infinite Evolve is a small spin-off game that was included as a pre-order bonus only in Japan. Infinite Evolve uses sprites in the gameplay style of the original DS version of the game. It is a fun short 4.5 hour long minigame, although you can keep playing it forever with increasing difficulty. Guess that's where the infinite part of the name comes from. The gameplay is side-scrolling and arcade-like, with 5 levels where enemies will appear and you need to fight your way through them to get to a boss at the end. The combat consists of a few regular attacks, a block, some arts, and support characters to summon. Most of them attack, but one can heal you. Supports will be where your main damage comes from. You can have a maximum of 4 assigned and can summon all 4 at once. Summoning supports depletes the summon bar, but can refill it by attacking enemies, so you can't just summon supports and block the whole time. There is a shop where you can purchase stat increases and level up supports. After reaching a certain amount of the stat, a new art will unlock. There isn't a huge amount of enemy variation, only a few enemies are in the game, but it is just a small free pre-order bonus game, so it's fine. After beating all 5 levels, it will then repeat again, but for the first few times there will be more items and support characters to get and level up at the shop. It can get quite hard, but if you die, you luckily can just start back at the start of the level you had gotten up to. After playing the game for a few loops, it does start to get quite repetitive. The money flying out of the enemies is kinda satisfying, especially when there are a lot of enemies and can defeat them easily. There is a small story that seems to take place sometime during the story of the main game. It's mostly just about Core wanting to become more of a man to impress Kohaki. The story is all in Japanese with no fan English patch, but you could skip the story sections and not miss out on much. Tales of Hearts Infinite Evolve is a fun little spin-off game with fun combat, nice music, especially in the shop, although there are only a few music tracks. It only took me about 3.5 hours to unlock everything. Overall, I recommend trying out the spin-off game too.